Welcome to this week's 5 Minute Friday. I am Dr. Jen Miller, and we are going to continue our professional learning on data protocols. Last session, we focused on question number 1 and number 2, which is what is it we expect students to know and be able to do, and how will we know when they have learned it. So within this, we were filling out our table on student levels of proficiency, and we are going to start there today and then move quickly into our no-do tables. All right, so when we ended last time, we were looking at question 2, how do we know if they have learned it? And we were mapping the student level of proficiency by standard. So when we look at our standards here and we filled in our table, if you need a refresher on how to do that, please go to part 2. Now that we've done this, we've identified standard 2.2 as well as standard ES11 as our key standards we want to focus on. To streamline our process today, we're only going to focus on 8.PS2.2. So after this, I'm going to go up and I'm going to create my no-do table for this standard and for the question that I've identified as a high miss question. So over here, we have our no-do table. And what I've done is I've just taken question number 22, which was the high miss question. I've copied this from the assessment and pasted it here. I've gone ahead and copied the standard code as well as the performance expectation into the box here. And then I've done my no-do table below. So here's my no. These are like the concepts students should be able to explain or understand. And the do are kind of the action items. So how are they applying that knowledge? For filling out this no and do table, you should immediately jump over to our curriculum guide. So when we look at our curriculum guide, I can find where my standard is being taught, and then I need to pick out the specific success criteria from this blue column right here that relate to the standard and the question that has been asked. So from my list here, I'm going to go back over to my no-do table, and you can see that I have selected the I can explain a force. I can explain that a force makes an object move or change direction. That's going to be a concept. They have to be able to know that and understand it. Whereas on this side, I have the skills. I can predict the outcomes of my investigation based on the understanding of forces. And I can identify examples of balanced and unbalanced forces in everyday situations. So students had to be able to do those things in order to properly answer the question related to that standard. So now that I have my no-do table completed, I can move back into question 2, and I'm going to focus on my student misconceptions. So I'm going to directly use those no's and do's from the table to figure out where students had their misconceptions. So I identified these two. So student had misunderstandings of balanced forces relating in no movement, and students misunderstand everyday applications of the forces that are on objects. And I said, yes, both of these skills need to be retaught. We know that this is an essential standard. So these are key ideas that students need to be able to grasp. From here, we're already done with step 2. So we can go on to critical questions 3 and 4. So how do we provide intervention when students have not reached proficiency on the standard or learning target? And how do we extend the curriculum when students have reached proficiency on the standard or learning target? So we know that we've already grouped our students into these types of categories so we can help them move to the next level of understanding using the interventions we're going to call out now. So for each misconception, we are going to make a plan for each of those. So when we get back to this table, we've numbered the misconceptions to align with those above, and then we are going to put a date in when we're going to reteach. So I've planned reteaching for 2 days, and I would add those specific dates in. So to address misconception number 1, I'm going to do a guided discourse. So notice it says, is a model or guided discourse more appropriate for reteaching? And then what reteach opportunities will you provide students to demonstrate greater proficiency of the skills required to reach proficiency of the standard or learning target? So for day 1, what I'm going to plan is a guided intervention, and we're going to review the questions that were related to this standard, not just 22, but all of them, and have students kind of think about their misconceptions that they missed. And then they're going to fill out the test correction form for those they missed, listing their reasoning, how they know the correct answer is correct, and what they need to work on to improve their understanding. Then on day 2, we are going to engage in a Legends of Learning force and motion activity that helps them understand the balance of forces in real life situations. From here, so this was our part 3, right? How do we provide intervention when they've not reached it? And then we're going to just look at question 4, how do we extend the curriculum? So here, for students who have reached proficiency, we're going to make a little enrichment plan. So when I'm creating my intervention for question 3 and my extension for question 4, I'm always going to go back to my teacher resource document. So when I look at my teacher resource document, I'm going to look at the activities that are available, and I'm going to say which ones can I use that might have a higher leverage impact on students that engages them in learning in a different way than I taught it the first time, right? It's multiple different ways of engaging in the same standards, so we don't want to redo the same work over again. So you can also use the Legends of Learning, which is on our curriculum guide. For the extension content, notice that there's this orange bar here, so you can pick one of these activities for those students who have reached proficiency. Just grab one of those and put it into your plan. So let's jump back over. So here is my extension. So I had 4 students and they're all going to do the same extension activity. I've listed the period in which they were found. And then I'm going to assign the PhET interactive simulation, which is gravity force lab. And this ties into a supporting standard, 8.ps2.5. So essentially it's extending beyond the essential standards. And now we're getting into those supporting standards so they can create deeper connections to the content. And then here I've listed the outcomes from this activity so that it's very clear what students should be able to start understanding after they've worked through that. So after you've created these plans, essentially your data protocol is done. So as a reminder, you'll use this process when you've been given a unit assessment from the district. So you'll give that assessment, look at your data in Mastery Connect, move through the data protocol, which we just finished, and now it's time to do the reteach and extension activities with all of your students. So congrats, you've made it through the data protocol process. It's really impactful to tailor your instruction and to see where students are in their levels of proficiency, and I hope you find the data protocol process useful in your own classroom as well. Thanks for watching today, and be sure to subscribe. Bye.